Hey guys, today a bit of a different video. I'm gonna show you an interaction between me and one of my consulting clients. We're talking about him having basically question about is Supabase set up, how you can replicate your database, and very important stuff. So I hope you find it interesting. And if you want to book a meeting like Gabriel, check in the description, or otherwise come in the Discord to ask your question for free. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Yeah, so what's been going with
Okay,
what's your situation?
so I built this directory in Lovable,
Okay.
and the directory is just a way for us marketeer to deploy a directory pretty fast by using API imports all the data you want from, let's say, Quebec. So you
Yes.
can actually build a directory fast. So usually with directories, the problem is building it is a pain in the ass. So we
Yes.
wanted to get a directory that we can actually go to the backend and import very easily, very fast. Now, first I'm doing this with Vibe AI, so I thought it was going to be easy. A freaking nightmare, right? Because
Yeah.
Lovable breaks everything,
Yes.
but it's there. It's in a little bit of a, but it's there. But then obviously, I did this with some partners. Some
Okay.
guys invested in us developing this, and obviously, we're used to WordPress and building this fast. And now we're struggling to how do we deploy these in different domain names. The goal for us was to get this done and put in different domain names and like build 10, 20 directories.
Yes.
So obviously it's with Lovable and obviously it's with Supabase.
Yes.
So I have researched everywhere, and obviously the migration to another GitHub account, I get it. It's not very complex. Download the code, upload the code to
Yeah.
GitHub. Gotcha. How to deploy it with something like Vercel, I get it. But the Supabase is the problem, right?
Yes.
That there's no a way of cloning it or migration. Am I correct so far?
Yeah, the basically the cloning feature for Supabase is not something that is implemented yet. I've seen that in the GitHub issues, a lot of people are upvoting that issue and asking for it to be done. Currently, the only way to do it is I actually have a video on that on how to, just migrate, but it's practically the same steps. Basically, you would need to dump the whole schema, and
Yeah.
once you have the whole schema, you just run that SQL file, which SQL is basically the querying language that all
Yeah.
databases use.
Mhm.
And once you run that file, after that, that's pretty much all you have to do, right? Because PostgreSQL is the database that Supabase uses, and they have a really great tool that allows you to basically dump the actual structure of your old database, whether it's with data, without data. So in your case, maybe it's without data since you want to start from scratch, and then you can just basically reset that same state on a new instance. Um, and I actually started thinking about it before when I saw your message. But yeah, go ahead.
But obviously, I mean, one of the things I've seen, there's a famous video of a guy doing it. I mean, almost crying while he's doing it, and he has to do it. I mean, table by table. I mean, he has to do it like table. But am I correct?
I think you're talking about the feature Supabase adds where instead of viewing the data in the tables, you can actually see the structure with the create table statement. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So what I saw technically was a video where someone has to, I mean, migrate the buckets, the permissions. I mean, every single part. So the first question is there any way to do like a global dump
Yes.
on like what we do with MySQL? Like we can do a mega dump and run it, and all the configuration can be moved to Supabase.
Yeah, you can do that. So one thing I would do first for you is go see one of my video. I'm gonna go get it for you. So it's gonna be let me check. It's gonna be at to and text. I'll just go get it for you real quick. I'll send it in a chat because I think it's really important for you. It basically shows you how to actually just migrate to a new Supabase instance. The example I was showing was going from cloud version to an actual self-hosted version.
Yeah, I
Um,
saw the video. Yeah,
oh, you saw this one with the commands
I
with the.
Yeah. So my question here is,
Okay.
and I assume that we're donkeys. Okay.
Okay.
So obviously, the running this as a with command is not going to allow to be doing this in mass, like okay, like in bulk.
Yes. Yes.
Okay? So understanding that, the next question is, if Supabase doesn't allow me to deploy fast, let's say that we want to do 10 directories today.
Yeah.
Okay, so it seems to me it's very manual process of doing it with code. And some of the guys that are involved in these, as soon as I tell them to do this on code, it's like asking them to, okay, to go to Canada by kayak from Australia. They'll be like, I mean, you're
Yeah.
crazy, man. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do that. Okay. So the first question is there any other way to do it? I mean, like a third party UI system that we can actually do, or if it's going to be better to migrate to something that is more friendly. So I saw someone talking about Neon, for example. So I mean,
Yeah.
you know what? If you move to something to Neon will be actually easier. So understanding that we're not, I mean, developers and we're not tech
Yes.
people, the question is, will it be easier to go right now to the process of moving these to a different system?
So one thing I really want to ask before, who's gonna be honing those directories? Is it gonna be other people or solely you?
Other people, that's the problem. So the problem is
Okay.
they come in, they get the code, the database, and they deploy themselves, and they can run one directory or 100 directories.
So I think the simplest thing for you would be that each person that comes in just
Yeah,
creates their own Supabase account. That's gonna be needed either ways. That's gonna be the first
yeah,
step.
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
They create their project. They can call it whatever they want. And from the creation of a Supabase project, they're gonna have basically the keys generated, so the anon key and the
Yeah,
actual like Supabase URL of their database. And
yeah.
from that, what I would do on your side is maybe create a small script or maybe a small UI that allows them to basically enter their credential, and that runs the whole SQL dump I talked to you about earlier. This would be the simplest solution, in my opinion. Um, if you,
Okay,
yeah,
so that can be coded. I mean, we're talking about in the same way that we build directory with Lovable, we can actually build a tool that migrates this to Supabase.
yeah. So let's say your, I don't know, your tool is called Lovable Directories, for example. You just, you have a website. Once someone pays a membership or just buy your actual product, then they have access to a page, let's say, sent to them by email that basically acts as a license activation. And basically, what it does is they just enter their actual Supabase database and on key, and the SQL file is basically executed on their own database. So what happens is it's basically cloning your database without the data that is yours.
Okay, fair enough. And this will also clone things like the permissions and the buckets and everything. I
Yes.
mean, everything that is
Yes.
required.
Yes. And you can do those three things separately. So in the video, I do it. It's basically I'm starting with the schema. So dumping all the
In
schema.
stages.
Yeah. So it's going from schema, permissions, and roles, and then data. Finally.
Do you think something like, I mean, you think it sounds ridiculous. I mean, do you think something like even Lovable can actually do that? I
I'm not
mean, oh,
sure if they can do it directly, but you could build the actual tool with Lovable. I'm sure you could do it. It's simply using a package like Postgres that is available for, I don't know what's the framework you're using for Frontend. Is it NextJS, I'm guessing?
great question. How do I
Yeah, no
how do I
problem.
find that?
So basically, one thing you would do is you can just maybe, do you have a link where I can see the like the directory of
Yeah,
code?
I can actually show you
Yeah,
technically the.
just share the screen. I can see,
Okay, okay.
and I can blur anything out if there's some
Oh
confusion.
no, it's okay. I mean,
Okay,
the world the world
great.
can know. This is me without any kind of slave. Okay, so technically this is the directory here. That's what we're trying to build,
Okay,
and this data here gets imported by a CSV. So what we do is we have an admin, and
okay,
this admin, what we do is we import here these a little file from API, and all the data gets imported.
Okay.
And then we have a little section here. We have all the directories. And what this does that's kind of cool is with AI, we optimize the SEO and the description and the category and makes it kind of like unique.
It's
So
very
that
nice.
is,
I like it.
yeah, I mean, so that is technically because this takes a long time. So you can actually build directory under, I mean, 1 hour by adding, I mean, a
The
CSV and
content
making it.
manually. Yeah.
Exactly. That's the whole goal. So we're marketeers, we're not developers, anything like that, right?
Yeah.
So so obviously this is connected to I mean here to the Supabase. And if I go here, I mean this is the directory that we have
Okay.
here, and this is the table. So that's mainly the way it works. So it's not very big, as you can see. This is, I mean, there's not many things, there's so many listings because they only need the basic stuff.
Yeah.
And we're developing these with basic, I mean, content. So there's no pages, it's just the basic page that says
The
cookie,
template.
product,
Yeah.
and that's
Okay.
it. Okay.
Can you show me the code? Um, is there a mode you can switch so we don't see the chat, but instead we see the code files? Because that's gonna tell me right away what's the framework you're using.
Yes, so I think we can go here in settings. I mean, I can actually,
Is it
where will I, okay, so let
maybe
me,
besides I think besides the Supabase icon, it's maybe yeah code viewer.
yeah, okay,
So I think it's gonna appear here. Yeah. Okay.
okay.
Public docs. That looks like React. Um, right
Yes.
away because I see app.tsx and that's a very React behavior. Pages. Okay, can you show me the package.json if you go in the search box and search package.json? Yeah, just click on it so I can see. Radix UI. Okay, you're using, yeah, it's Vite React basically. Okay, so I mean,
Ex- Explain to me in English.
yeah.
Is that good? Is that bad?
So there's no good or bad, like whatever framework you're using. The difference with a framework like Vite or simply WordPress, um, actually they're pretty similar. So WordPress is made with PHP, which is another language.
Yeah.
Vite is using JavaScript, but in your case, you're also using TypeScript. So basically, TypeScript is, let's say you're doing a cooking recipe. Imagine that the TypeScript is the grams or kilograms and stuff like that. And then the JavaScript is maybe like the numbers associated to it, right? You have, let's say,
Gotcha.
1 kilo of I don't know, something. It's the main difference. So Vite is mainly used for making static websites. And when I say static websites, it's pretty much what you're doing, right? So if you were to do a directory, this is stuff that is not going to change in the future.
Yeah.
You can still change it in the code in the backend, but on the front end, it's not going to change. Like it's going to change
Dramatic.
rarely if it does. Um, but compared to frameworks like NextJS or AngularJS, which are very much larger frameworks, like to make bigger, more role intensive application, more like CRM, ERP, so bigger
Yeah.
softwares that are going to be used. But in your case, Vite is a very good choice for that actual directory. I'm not sure if it's Lovable decided that. Maybe
Yeah. Actually, yeah. Automatically. Yeah.
so that's a choice I would have made in that situation also,
Okay.
because I think Next.js is bulkier in a too big of a way to use it in that kind of project where you lose the advantages of those kinds of framework. Um, so yeah, so you're using Vite. I think it's a really great framework. What was the question again on that you had on that?
No, so I mean, you also have to see the code. So let me pause 2 seconds with Superbase. So
Yeah,
the question is, do you think, considering that Superbase, I mean, I don't find it being the cheapest, I mean, system is $10 per database.
yeah.
Now, what would be the advantage of moving to something, let's say, like, the reason why I say Neo is because one of the persons on the video mentioned something like this. So is there any advantage, and how easy is to transfer these to a different database?
Yeah, so basically, I think the real use case for Supabase is really if you need all those attached services to the database, right? So Supabase handles authentication. So is that something you need?
Yes, I mean,
Yeah.
give an example of authentication, like login, password. Yeah.
Yeah, so login, password, email confirmation sending, all
Yes.
those things. But there's also other, features like webhooks. So those are things that, let's say you enter a new data in the database, it's gonna send a, let's say it's gonna call another API and say, I just received that data. Do you want to do something with it? There's also WebSockets. So this is, let's say, on a live
It's not.
messaging app.
It's not being that advanced. No, it's actually pretty basic.
Yeah, so if you need more basic stuff, I would actually go with Neon because I think Supabase comes with a lot of overhead that you don't necessarily need. And again, it comes with the same reflection that I had with Vite versus Next.js. Is if you don't need a bigger engine, like don't use it, right? It's gonna cost more in the long run, and you'll end up just switching back and waste a lot of money on that. Supabase can be self-hosted, which allows to save a lot of costs, but it's more management than if you're using something lighter weight like Neon, which is purely a Postgres database, no like strings attached around it. So in your case, I would use Neon, and for the auth, you can use things like any auth provider like Auth0 or any other auth providers.
So can this be migrated to Neon? How technically expert you have to be to someone to migrate a database from Supabase to Neon?
Actually, it would be quite simple because both of them are using the same database engine. So the database engine is PostgreSQL. The only thing that would maybe change is the tables related to the auth section, but this is something that you won't need those tables. So anyway, it's gonna still work if you decide to move from PostgreSQL to Neo. I don't
Okay.
see why it wouldn't work.
Okay. And but obviously something like Lovable will stop working automatically because this integrates, I think, only exclusively with Supabase.
It depends the kind of queries that you've had because a thing that is also great with Supabase is that they have a really great software development kit, which is instead of doing some raw SQL queries, you can use things like Supabase dot from X table select X column.
Okay.
Neon also has one, but you can also use other we call those ORM, so they're object relational mapping SDKs. Um, but there's things like Prisma. There's
Yeah.
other ORMs that you could use and piggyback. The reason Supabase does all is because they've taken a lot of packages and just brought it into one big one. But that doesn't mean you cannot use Neon with something else for the auth and then another ORM for.
So just to go to my point of this is my database here that I have with Supabase. Okay. So
Yeah.
presume that I'm a 10-year-old with no
Okay.
experience.
Okay.
Okay. In theory, could I actually export, table by table,
You
okay,
could. Yeah.
and then import it directly?
Yeah, you could. You could do it, and you can even do it manually if it makes you feel better, right? If you go at the bottom right of your screen, if you go to definition, at the
Uh,
right on top of the hour, at the bottom right.
at the bottom right here.
Oh,
Sorry,
sorry.
I'm
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
yeah, got
yeah. So this is actually what the table is. It's a simple SQL query. This is the actual query you would use if you were to recreate that actual table. So the script that is gonna create the Supabase dump that I told you about, where it does automatically all those, is exactly that. It's just gonna
it's
take
going to post the SQL and it's going to post it one by one.
yeah,
Okay, gotcha.
yeah, and theoretically, if you don't change the actual database code, you just have to do it in one time, and then after that, people can reuse the same file to clone your actual database.
Okay, fair enough. Now, assume that I clone the database. Okay, this is ridiculous that I'm asking this, but
No
okay,
problem.
what are the conditions? We have the Supabase, the
Yeah.
secret key. Okay, what other conditions will Supabase require to run this in a different, let's say, GitHub code or something? What are the things that need to be? Both of them. Actually, before I ask you that question, let me ask you another strange question. Can we run different? Can we have one GitHub, project with different Supabases, like a master code that everyone reads from? The information gets stored in their own Supabase, but the main code is protected and is shared with different people. Is that possible?
Yeah, you can always gatekeep actual Supabase repositories. There's we call that organizations. So basically, an organization can have teams inside that actual organization, and this
Yeah.
team has access to repositories that are either private or public. So in this case, that could be like all the small Supabase projects that you've created. But you can
Yeah, but
choose to invite
could
people
you
to it.
run a directory? Can I run a directory in the same GitHub as you? Can we both have in the same? Can we have two different websites using the same code on GitHub?
No, that's not ideal because the way it works when you're deploying an app on a platform is that what we'll do is we'll just get the whole GitHub repository, and then after that we'll just execute the installation. Let's say so, npm install, and then after npm run. Um, it could be a setup where you just do all those, but you do it where it uses different ports, and then let's say it starts like 25 website at a time. That could work, but it would be a long job in terms of startup time.
Yeah.
So this is where I would maybe think of a more of a individual kind of run.
Okay.
um, but yeah, it depends really what's your, because if you're telling me that other people other than you or your team are going to be using it, this is where I
Yeah.
think individual GitHub repositories could be. The thing you could do is just allow them to clone the repository. We call this forking. So this is basically what Mark Liu from Shipfast does. I don't know if you know Mark Liu, if you've heard about him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this guy, that's what he does, right? He has a repository called Shipfast, and what happens is when you purchase that actual code, it gives you access to the GitHub repository, and it allows you to not modify the code, but actually fork it. So when you fork the code, it just brings in a copy of that code into your own repository,
Huh.
and so they could do that and just click deploy, and it would do it without being attached to that actual initial um, copied version, if you want.
Okay, so this is interesting. Let me get this clear. So if I have my GitHub project, instead of them having to download and clone it, they can actually fork it directly and then deploy it directly themselves.
Yeah, you can do that. And like I said, if you plan to make those people pay for it, one thing you can do is just invite them via the GitHub API, or just manually if you have low volumes of sale. If it's a more of a low volume type of interaction, then you can just invite them manually by email when they, let's say, sign up or things like that, where they will have access to clone that project.
And once you fork a project, if you're forking my project and I update my original project, do you get notified or your project gets, or nothing? You're already forked it and you're gone, or there's any communication between original project and the project that you forked?
There's actually two different ways you can do it. So when you fork, you have two different choices. It's either you stay with the what we call the parent repository, which is
Yeah.
the actual initial clone version. So let's say your copy of the actual repo will be the parent one, and then the child will be the one that is the copy. You can choose to stay attached to the parent one, or you can choose to
Yeah.
detach and start your own version. So in your case, I think that would be that first option, where maybe if you have a small onboarding tutorial, you tell people stay attached to that parent repository. Or you decide to basically tell them you can choose whatever you want, but just make sure you update once in a while, either by checking breaking changes or things like that. It depends on really what you would want to do.
Okay, fair enough. So, so now that I have you here, obviously, so technically, if this is my project right now
Yeah.
here, okay, I mean, someone will come here and they will click on fork, all right? That will be
Yeah,
the
exactly.
okay. And no fork has been actually done here. Okay, so technically, anyone that is part of this project, okay, um, I will have. I mean, they will have to request a fork, right? I mean, in this case, right?
If you've given them the access to the repo, they'll be
Yeah.
able to fork it. You can also set like security things where you limit the amount of forkings it can be done per user, things like that. But the repo, even though it's forked, it's always going to say at the top of their own copy, forked from supa directory, right? It's
Okay.
always going to say like forked from. Um, I don't think that's a bad thing. I still think it's it just shows who's the original author, and then if those
Perfect.
people want to share their own directory, they can.
So that means they don't have to download the code. They don't have to do anything. They will just press that, and the code will deploy in their own GitHub. So in that way, we just yeah.
They wouldn't need a directory. That's what I meant. They wouldn't need like an IDE, like a VS Code or things like that to download on their computer, run the server, and like they wouldn't need that. This can all be done via web interface without them actually downloading that stuff. Two simple fields like I said, like Supabase project URL and then Supabase anon key, and then you're all set, right? You just enter your database, or whether you choose to use Supabase or Neon, that's the same thing. But
Yeah.
uh, just a connection to the database so that we can run that initial script, and after that, it's a good to go type of installation.
But just to confirm with the GitHub, I mean, once I pull this is I have my own copy of the directory and I'm ready to go. I just have to sort out the database, like in the next step. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So nothing is changing for yourself in terms of the actual repo for Supabase directory. Nothing was touched there. You won't see a change there. It's only the person who basically clones the actual repo that will have a new child of that instance.
Okay, perfect, mate. This is actually super helpful. So I guess the easiest way for me is will be to build a script that allows me to migrate from one Supabase to another Supabase, and it will do this step by step. Okay, fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah. And honestly, I think the hardest thing in that would be just to connect a few like APIs, which are um, like I said, it's some kind of phone calls. If I can do like a comparison to real life stuff, let's say you need to call your friend to go somewhere, it's the same thing, right? And it's not a very complicated process. It's well documented, and um, that's how Versal does it, right? When you connect a GitHub repository to Versal, that's what they do. They basically associate your GitHub repository to basically a pipeline where each time you, let's say, you add new code or you add new content, it just creates a new version of that actual app on the web. um,
Okay. And now that I have you here, I mean, we're getting away from Supabase for 2 seconds. This code, I mean, vibing coding, I mean, it's kind of great, but there's so many flaws on the code itself.
yes,
I mean, they're kind of like it's more. I think it's more hype than what it
it
is.
is, it's always like, because the people who are software engineers like me, like other people, they understand that you cannot do everything with AI. It's impossible. You still need a
Yeah.
brain understanding how you will architect all that stuff. Maybe for coding UIs, yeah, I definitely think it's a very great thing, but I still think you need to understand what's the connection in the back end, how everything works, optimization, things like that. Like AI is not able to reason that because they don't understand the whole picture.
How would you? I mean, if you had something like Lovable, that seems to me is the most baby process of all. How would you? What would you use? I mean, to audit that. I mean, of course, you're a developer, so you can actually see the code
Yeah.
and audit it. But what would be a more advanced tool to audit what exactly is there going on?
In terms of architecture, you're talking?
Yeah, I mean, overall, because when you ask Lovable to audit its own code, it ends up breaking everything. Okay, and it's a nightmare. So what would
The
be?
so for that, we need to understand the basis of AI, right? The problem with AI is that the context window is limited, right? It's like if I read you a book, I cannot read you 100 books and you all remember them, right? You have a specific like lifespan of that information that stays in your head, and after a day it's gonna be gone, or you just forget it and you need to reread it again. Same thing with AI. It has a memory of its own, and it needs to basically keep that memory in check for a specific time or for a specific conversation. So the thing with that is that for auditing all that code, you will need to use an AI that has a big context window. So one AI I know has a good context window is Gemini. So Gemini has,
Yeah.
I think, 1.5 million of context window. It's the one of the biggest to date, even better than OpenAI's model and stuff like that. You could use tools like so you have Gemini, you had this one I just said, and then you could always use tools like ChatGPT to basically where you upload your whole directory, you put all the files you have in a specific project of OpenAI ChatGPT, and then you just tell it to analyze. Um, Honestly, I've tried this in the past, but it's not very good because it kind of doesn't get all the context that you need. You really need to go like part by part for it to understand the context, because if you put everything at the same time, it's just getting lost. Honestly, I don't see like it being that efficient. I think it's more gonna, if I can say, getting you lost more than
Yeah. Okay.
clarifying stuff. So I would go maybe. Yeah, I don't see a tool that does this good right now. I may not be aware of the latest tool. There's always new one. Um, but right now, I think either ChatGPT's projects feature or Entropic Artifact with Claude. So Claude for coding is very expensive but very good. So if you wanna, you know, make it act as a tech lead where it just looks over your code, I think ChatGPT 4.0 or Claude latest model would be the two best for watching over your stuff.
Okay, man. I mean, I appreciate that. I think that makes sense. I mean, so I think I will give it a go to try to build that migration tool. And hopefully, well, I guess hopefully Lovable can actually understand what I need to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And also you can try different tools, right? There's Cursor. Cursor is very good. Obviously, it's not a web UI. It's more of a IDE that we call a development environment. Um, but it's very good. Cursor has a good understanding of the code. It's still not perfect, but uh, like you said, if you want to get that whole kind of context, it's good. Another tip I can give you is that sometimes when you use tools like Lovable to basically reset that context window, one thing you could do is just create a new chat into Lovable. So make sure
Yeah.
that when you're changing topic in terms of, let's say you're working with the home page and then you go with the, I don't know, the database login feature, I would just create a new chat each time, because the way it organizes those thoughts is way more precise if you section it by.
I learned that. I mean, I was pulling 7 tasks, and then
Yeah,
at the end, it was losing its shape. It was like
yeah,
going like, yeah, I don't care anymore. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So it kind of mixes up.
I guess it's
Um,
because you become like an addict to trying to save prompts and credits. So you're
yeah,
trying to compile many things. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. It's a really addictive process, but I mean, it's kind of, I feel like the curve of precision, the more you ask the task to be precise, is kind of, it grows, it grows, it grows, so it gets better. But then after the chat is being like super full, it start getting like it's going down fast, because the context window, like I said, is the real goal in this type of environment.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, listen, I appreciate it, man. I will try to give it a go. I found amazing that there's no like a commercial tool out there for people to, I mean, to clone. I mean, Supabase, because I can't be
Yeah.
the only person doing
No,
this.
you're not the only one, because I've had, other people in consulting telling me like they want to do this, not for directories but for other projects. And I'm still waiting for that feature to arrive, because I think it's going to be a good game changer, especially just for people who want to start from the same project and um, just get fast in a new project.
Let me ask you a last question before
Yeah.
before you leave. I mean, Supabase has something called backups, okay,
Yeah.
but obviously that is not very friendly whatsoever because it doesn't allow you really to restore a backup from somewhere else. I mean, am I getting this right?
The way they do backups, if you're using the managed version, is good for restoring. You can actually do it. You need a paid account though, and I think the amount of backups is pretty low. Also, the logs, it's only like 7 days of retention, so it's not that much. I've actually made a video on how to do like full backup and restore from Supabase with Coolify that I'm using for hosting Supabase. Um, but yeah, it's a pretty, like, in theory, backupping and restoring is pretty easy. It's simply two commands, but it's more of the architecture between it. So the way they do it is they basically do the dump of the Postgres database, and then what they do is that they save that actual image of the database at that point in time into an S3 storage. So S3 is things like um, storing every information into a block of storage. AWS has this, Cloudflare has this. And basically, what you do when you want to restore is just take that image back and restore it into the database. So for the hosted version on the cloud, I didn't do it, but for the self-hosted version, I do it successfully.
Why are people not using that to be able to clone their Supabase via backups? I mean, isn't that, I mean, an easier way?
You could do it, but you're limited. Like I say, it's a very limited way to do it, and you can only restore to your own database. You cannot.
Ah, of course.
Yeah,
Okay.
you don't have. They don't give you access to the files. That's the thing. They don't give you access to the restore files. They put it into their. They label it as that point in time with that file, but they don't give you access to the file.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, perfect. Um, do you think that it's worth giving Lovable a go with the building this migration script, or you think it would be easy for me to hire someone directly to, I mean, to be able to build this?
I think for the what I said, just like a web UI with like inserting credentials, like the two credentials, and um, just
There's no goal of charging anyone to do this. I mean, people that will use this will be only people in the network. So yeah.
yeah. So I don't think that's complicated enough that you need to hire someone. I think
Okay.
you could use either a tool like Cursor or whatever other AI tool you want to use. I think it's not, and even like if it's really necessary, maybe like get someone to look over it. But I think in general, it's not complicated enough where you need to know software architecture in depth. I think AI could do that task without a consultant being involved.
Okay, perfect.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. You've been amazing, dude.
It's my pleasure, man, and I hope it goes very well with your project, and we'll keep in touch to see how it goes.